Sutta Central.
The Sutta Central one's fine.
Well,
We can pull it out.
What's your name anyway?
I'm Liz.
Hi Liz.
After Sar and Sar.
Sar we got, but we didn't actually get your name.
You were Sar's partner as far as we were concerned.
Yeah. Right, so Liz has also got Sutta Central going there, so
I think we'll go with Sutta Central.
Oh, that's not working. What am I doing?
That's on
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Oh,
We should have your email address, but there's a thingy up there next to Peter. Just write your email address on there and I'll put
Peter forwarded it to us last time.
it. Okay. Well, there's a notepad thingy up there. You can pop your email address on there. Yeah, I don't know. But she doesn't share everything with me, you know. It's like, it's one of those relationships.
What's going on here? I have got a new epithet here.
What's that?
I've become she who must be obeyed.
Ah, yes, there's that.
Which is, of course, not true at all.
Oh, cool, we have someone watching.
Perhaps it's even a little bit of wishful thinking on my part.
No, but do you know what time it starts and that kind of stuff?
What's this? Which
Oh, for the day long? It's on the webpage.
it's on the website.
So,
It's the same schedule as last time.
I can send it to you though, that's fine. Cornelius.
it's on the website then.
Yeah, if you find the events, you should be able to find it. Yeah, these guys are on the mailing list, is it?
Oh, I'm on it already.
Yep, we're
But
good.
you could, is the email address wrong to you?
What for you, Peter?
No, for Cornelius.
No.
But it's possible that if you haven't put our address into your contacts, then they go into your promotions tab, Cornelius.
If
I see this junk mail.
if the secretary at Buddha Society, etc., is not in your contacts, then the emails that we send out go into your promotions tab instead of into your inbox. So the way you fix that is putting them in your contacts list.
I get emails from you, but
Not from, yeah, the Buddha Society.
Well, that's interesting because I gave her an upload.
yeah, so I don't know why
We
that
got
is.
an email from the Buddhist Society of South Australia.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
I
it.
get those
That's
too.
it.
That's
from
me.
her. She sends those out.
That's mine.
Okay.
That's what it was.
I checked my junk mail though, so that's
Yeah.
not going again.
It came very late today.
It
It
did.
did, very, very late, but we were...
6:20 or something.
Yeah, like
No,
we were out all
6:23.
We've
day,
been out all day, so yeah.
and then as soon as we got home, she leapt on, and because we didn't have the venue confirmed until late today for the AGM, because Bante double booked us. He said yes, you
No, I
can
don't
have the
get them.
hall
I don't know why
breakfast.
that is.
So it looks like.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, no. Weird. Because I get some from Santakari occasionally.
Okay, yeah, I only send out occasionally. I haven't sent it out many this year because I haven't been very well. All right.
Oh, so
Anyway.
Cornelius, I'm having a look on the website, and you can see the April 29 retreat on there under upcoming retreat.
Yeah.
And the schedule's on the website under 7 a.m. start, says.
Yeah, what was I thinking of?
Well, you wanted to get something done before lunch.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you have lunch so early.
Yeah. And you know,
I mean, you'd be used to much earlier than that.
no, I haven't been well at all this year, so I haven't been getting up early. I've been
On
really,
retreat.
yeah, even on retreat.
Oh.
I had a migraine while I was on retreat.
Oh.
Two,
Oh.
actually. and that knocks me around.
I know that one with my allergies.
Mindfulness of fog, mindfulness of pain. I had a great time doing a super practice this last retreat. It was so hilarious. And I said to Ajahn, everything's disgusting, it's so hilarious.
Whenever you're ready, I think we're good to go live.
Okay, well, we start the Sutta class with, well, it's not a class, it's a discussion group, because I'm really not knowledgeable enough to really hold it as a class. So we'll start with Dhammatthala just to recognise copyright. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Very good. So, if you didn't already know, for the new people, that just gives respect to the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, well, at least for the Buddha, for him rediscovering the Dharma and teaching it so that it could be handed down to us. So today we're going to look at the discourse of the Honeyball, which is a fun sutta, I think. And then I'll start out by reading it through, and then from time to time I'll stop and we can just discuss it and see what we all think about it. So, thus I have heard, which all suttas start like that. At one time, the Buddha was staying among the Sakyans in the Grodus monastery in Kapilavatthu. And between us, we've got a couple of different translations, so don't worry too much if you have slightly different words. Then the Blessed One, having dressed in the morning, taking his bowl and robe, entered Kapilavatthu for alms food. Having walked in Kapilavatthu for alms, returning from the quest for alms after the meal, he approached the great wood for the day's meditation. Having plunged into the great wood, he sat down for the day at the root of a young bilva tree. Then the Sakyan, stick in hand, so his name, the Sakyan's name was Dandapani, which means stick in hand. So he probably had a very fine walking stick, to be known as the guy who's got a stick in his hand, right?
Well, I've also heard Bhante Sujato describe it as something that might have been used as a weapon.
That's true, yes. That makes sense. So the Sakyan named Stick in Hand, or Dandapani, who was always pacing up and down, always roaming about on foot, approached the great wood. Having plunged into the great wood, he approached the young bilva tree and the Blessed One. Having approached, he exchanged greetings, and having exchanged greetings of friendliness and courtesy, he stood at one side leaning on his stick. And as he was standing at one side leaning on his stick, the Sakyan, stick in hand, spoke thus to the Blessed One. What is the teaching of the recluse? Of what views is he? So just a little comment on manners here. He was standing and the Buddha is sitting. This is actually not a respectful, in terms of the cultural context of the day, this is not a respectful way to speak to someone, standing over them looking down, right?
With a stick.
With a stick in his hand. If he had been respectful, he would have sat down to put himself on the same level as the Buddha. So the fact that he's standing and standing over the Buddha indicates a little bit of attitude here. And so we can read attitude into, yeah, mate, what's your teaching then? You know?
What are you about?
What are you on about? So it's got a little bit of attitude going on, and hence the Buddha's reply is, personally I find it really amusing. According to my teaching, in the world with its angels, devils and gods. That's my translation here of Devas, Maras and Brahmas. With its creation of recluses and Brahmins, Devas and men, there is no contending with anyone in the world. Contending, arguing, quarrelling. There's no quarrelling with anyone in the world. If you're spoiling for a quarrel, mate, you're not getting one from me. For which reason perceptions do not obsess that Brahman as he fares along, not fettered to sense pleasures, without questionings, remorse cut off, and who is devoid of craving for becoming and non-becoming. This is my teaching, this is my view. Now, what I would really like is someone with the Bhikkhu Bodhi translation to read out Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Would you like to do that?
I've got that.
You've got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is, Friend, I assert and proclaim my teaching is such a way that one does not quarrel with anyone in the world, with its gods, its Maras and Brahmas, in this generation with its recluses and Brahmins, its princes and people, in such a way that perception no more underlie that Brahman who abides detached from sensual pleasure, without perplexity, shorn of worry, free from craving for any kind of being.
Do you want another translation?
Yep.
This is from
Tinisaro?
Access to Insight.
Probably Tinisaro.
The sort of doctrine, friend, where one does not keep quarrelling with anyone in the cosmos, with its Devas, Maras and Brahmas, with its contemplatives and Brahmins, its royalty and common folk, the sort, brackets, of doctrine, end bracket, where perception no longer obsess Brahman, who remains disassociated from sensuality, free from perplexity, is uncertainty cut away, devoid of craving for becoming and non, such is my doctrine, such is what I proclaim.
And when this has been said, the Sakya Dandapani, shaking his head and wagging his tongue, departed leaning on his stick, his brow furrowed into 3 wrinkles. I think I might have had a bit of a furrowed brow if someone said that to me as well.
Basically, if you're looking for a fight, it ain't happening here.
And the other thing about that is actually when you go into it deeper, he has packaged his entire teaching of 9,000 discourses into 3 sentences. Cop that, young Harry. You reckon you're smart? Unravel that one, mate. I reckon I've read this so many times, and every time I read it, I think, what? So, there's no quarrelling with anyone in the world, and for which reason perceptions do not underlie or obsess that person as he lives, not fettered or attached to sense pleasures, without questionings or perplexities, remorse cut off, devoid of craving for becoming and non-becoming. Now, it still hasn't got any better, right?
You're like, what?
So, I'll just keep it does get elucidated
It's easier, don't
further
worry.
on. So, when this had been said, the Sakyan departed, shaking his head, wagging his tongue, brow furrowed into 3 wrinkles. Yeah, I reckon I can be doing that too. So then the Blessed One, emerging from solitude towards the evening, approached Nigroda's monastery. Having approached, he sat down on the appointed seat. As he was sitting down, he addressed the monks, saying, "Now I, monks, Having dressed this morning, taking my bowl and robe, entered Kapilavatthu for alms food. Having walked in Kapilavatthu for alms food, returning from that quest, I approached the great wood for the day's sojourn. Having plunged into the great wood, I sat down for the day's sojourn at the root of a young bilber tree. Then the Sakyan, stick in hand, who was always pacing up and down, always roaming about on foot, approached the great wood. Having plunged into the great wood, he approached the young bilber tree and me. Having approached, he exchanged greetings with me. Having exchanged greetings of friendliness and courtesy, he stood at one side leaning on his stick. And as he was standing at one side leaning on his stick, the Sakyan, stick in hand, spoke thus to me. What is the teachings of the recluse? Of what views is he? So we kind of go through the whole thing again here. According to my teaching, sir, in the world with its devas, maras and brahmas, with its creation, recluses, brahmins, devas, men, there is no contending or quarrelling with anyone in the world, for which perceptions do not obsess that Brahman as he fares along, not fettered to sense pleasures, without questioning, remorse cut off, and who is devoid of craving for becoming and non-becoming.
We've got a totally different translation here.
This, sir, is my teaching, this is my view. And the fact that we've got 3 completely different translations of this shows how difficult it is to even translate, let alone understand. Yet it's the same gist, really, if you look. So obviously the Pali words, the language underlying it, doesn't map well into English, which is why we have such different translations. It means that the things he's talking about are not part of the culture that produced the language English. Yes. That type of thinking, that type of comprehension isn't part of our the way that people think that produce a language. Yeah, because a language comes from people trying to discuss things that they're mutually talking about. And in English, people haven't been trying to understand this kind of thing, and therefore the language just doesn't have words for it.
That's right, yeah.
So translations are always partial. And anyway, so after he said that to the bhikkhus said, were also feeling very perplexed. Even though they understood Pali and it was spoken to them in Pali, the monks, when he told them this story, they also went, what? What?
That was unanimous?
A unanimous huh arose. And so when the Blessed One had spoken thus, a certain monk spoke up to the Blessed One. But what? What is this teaching whereby the Blessed One in the world with its devas, maras and brahmas, with its creation with recluses and brahmins would not contend with anyone in the world? And how is it that perceptions do not obsess the Blessed One, that Brahman, as he is faring along, not fettered to sense pleasures, without questionings, remorse cut off, and who is devoid of craving for becoming and non-becoming? So this next bit, we're each going to have to read out the different translations as well, I think.
I did send out the Bhikkhu Bodhi link in the email today. So.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay. Should I find that as well?
It's the yellow robe one.
Well, I think that it's all right if we each take a turn. I think that shares it round. So, having been asked by the monks, please explain, the Blessed One said in this translation, whatever is the origin, monk, of the number of obsessions and perceptions which assail a man, whatever the origin of your obsessions and perception, if there is nothing to rejoice at, to welcome, to catch hold of, this itself is an end of attachment. This is itself an end of the propensity to repugnance or aversion. This is in itself an end of the propensity to views. This is in itself an end of the propensity to perplexity. This is in itself an end of propensity to pride. This is in itself an end of propensity to attachment, to becoming, an end of a propensity to ignorance, an end of taking the stick, of taking a weapon, of quarrelling, contending, disputing, accusation, slander, lying speech. In these ways, these evil, unskilled states are stopped without remainder. Thus spoke the Blessed One. So, would you like to read out the next translation?
Sure. Bhikkhus, as to the source through which perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation beset a man, if nothing is found there to delight in, welcome and hold to, this is the end of the underlying tendency to lust, of the underlying tendency to aversion, of the underlying tendency to views, of the underlying tendency to doubt, of the underlying tendency to conceit, of the underlying tendency to desire for being, of the underlying tendency to ignorance. This is the end of resorting to rods and weapons, of quarrels, brawls, disputes, recriminations, malicious words, and false speech. Here these evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder.
Okay, next version.
Yes, please.
If, monk, with regard to the cause whereby the perceptions and categories of objectification assail a person, there is nothing there to relish, welcome, or remain fastened to, then that is the end of the obsessions of passion, the obsessions of resistance, the obsessions of views, the obsessions of uncertainty, the obsessions of conceit, the obsessions of passion for becoming, and the obsessions of ignorance. That is the end of taking up rods and bladed weapons, of arguments, quarrels, disputes, accusations, offensive tale-bearing, and false speech. That is where these evil, unskillful things cease without remainder.
Soon, having said this, the welfare arising from his seat entered a dwelling place. And soon after the Lord had gone away, it occurred to these monks, Your Reverences, the Blessed One, having recited this to us in brief, but not having explained the meaning from his in full, rising from his seat, has gone to bed. Well, entered a dwelling place. He's gone to bed, and we still don't get it. So
if you don't get it, then you're doing okay.
So having had a slight expansion of the meaning, do we get it yet?
No.
Well, neither did the monk, so that's okay. I'm going to make off with a couple of cushions, excuse me. All right. So I think we're in good company here, because the monks didn't get it either.
So this shopping list,
Yes,
it's quite a shopping list.
it's quite a shopping list, yes.
So pride, ignorance, repugnant,
Well,
big.
see where it starts. What's the cause of the shopping list?
Whatever the cause of the shopping list,
Perceptions and
Perceptions.
obsessions and perceptions,
Mental proliferations.
mental proliferation. So
Delighting in them.
whatever is the origin of those mental proliferations, that, as far as I understand it, that's the blah 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 up here. Mental proliferation, right? I see a flower, I think, what a pretty flower. That's my favourite colour. I remember when I was 5 years old and I went to my grandma's house and she had a whole field of them. So from the bare thing of seeing a colour, recognising it as flower, then this whole story comes in my mind of seeing those flowers in my grandmother's when I was 5 years old. So that's the kind of thing that happens all the time to all of us, right? So, whatever is the origin of the obsessions and perceptions, the mental proliferation which goes on in your head, if you don't rejoice in it, delight in it, welcome it, hold on to it, then that not holding on to it is the end of attachment, desire, lust, is the end of repugnance, aversion, hatred, it's the end of views, it's the end of perplexity and doubt, it's the end of pride and conceit, end of attachment to becoming, ignorance. And if all those things are ended, then why would you need to take up sticks and weapons and quarrel and dispute and tell lies? If you're not attached to those obsessions going around in your head, if you're not delighting in them, or if you're not getting aversion to them and hating them, you know. I love those kinds of flowers. And my neighbour went and drove his truck over them. Ah! I am going to take up a stick and hit my neighbour because he drove over the flowers that I love because they were at my grandmother's house.
At least hit the car.
I will beat with my stick on the bonnet of his car.
That'll show him.
You need a copy of this, you do? Are you alright?
I'm listening.
Okay.
And
I can give you this if you want.
No, it's alright. Yeah. Thank you.
So that's version 2 expanded. Then the monks, still finding that a bit confusing, they then go and find Sariputta. No, or not Sariputta, I think it's somebody else actually. Mahakachana to explain it further.
It's not complete.
Mahakachana is an experienced monk.
Different
Yes.
translation.
Someone who's
The great Kachana.
who's good at explaining things in more detail. So,
4 out of 10.
they repeat again what the Buddha just said and realise that they don't understand it, and they say, who can explain the meaning in full of this recital recited in brief, but whose meaning was not explained in full? In other words, oh no, we still don't get it, and the Buddha's gone to bed, who shall we ask?
Pretty dedicated.
Yeah,
They didn't say, well, we'll go to bed and think about it later.
Just follow whatever I do. Go to bed, I go to
Buddha's going to
bed.
bed, I'm good.
Yeah, they didn't go manana.
They were good monks. They went, we better go and ask somebody else then.
This seems important.
This seems important. Let's go and find out what he meant. Now, the Venerable Kachana the Great is both praised by the Blessed One and revered by intelligent fellow Brahmafarers. The Venerable Kachana the Great is able to explain in full the meaning of this recital, but whose recited in brief, but whose meaning was not explained in full. Suppose we were to approach the Venerable Kachana, and having approached, were to question him on the meaning. Then these monks approached the Venerable Kachana the Great. Having approached, they exchanged greetings. Having exchanged greetings of friendliness and courtesy, they sat down at a respectful distance. So notice the difference here between them and Dandapani, stick in hand. After having exchanged greetings, they sat down, so they were at the same level. As they were sitting down at a respectful distance, these monks spoke thus: Reverend Kachana. And so they then say that whole thing that we just talked about a minute ago. May the Venerable Kachana the Great explain it. And he kind of pays them out. He's going,
I like this bit.
You guys had the Buddha there. You had the actual Buddha. Why didn't you just ask him instead of coming to me?
That's why I was thinking.
Yes, well, you were thinking the same thought as the Venerable Kachana the Great. You guys had the actual Buddha. Why are you asking me?
Someone else. didn't say, then how can you explain exactly what's going
It's
on?
gone to bed.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Like we don't have Buddha, then we have to ask somewhere. But Buddhas, they're just come and act like a teacher and a student.
Exactly right. And that's exactly what the Venerable Kachana goes. So you're obviously bright. Smart girl. So, yes. This, even so, this performance of the Venerable One, so even though you had the teacher face to face, yet you, having ignored that teacher, you judge that it's I who should be questioned on this meeting? Come on. Anyway, but, okay. So then they go, but you know, you're really good. You would be able to tell it to us. What is it? Where shall I'll jump down to. So they praise him up a bit and kind of beg and ask him again, let the Venerable Kachana explain without finding it troublesome. Well then, your reverences, listen and pay careful attention, and I will speak. Yes, your reverence, these monks answered the Venerable Kachana the Great in assent. And the Venerable Kachana the Great spoke thus, and we're going to have to go through all three translations again, I think. Yeah.
So we're up to paragraph number?
I don't know, I don't have
You don't have any paragraphs
numbers.
turned on. If you go to the thingy, you can tell me where we're at.
Yeah, well, I'll deal with that another time.
Alright, friends, the Blessed One rose from his seat and went to his dwelling.
No, you're not up to that. Come on down to the Venerable Kachana spoke thus.
Yes, this is what the Venerable Kachana said. Friends, when the Blessed One rose from his seat and went into his dwelling after giving a summary and brief without expounding the detailed meaning, that is, bhikkhus, as to the source through which perception and notions born of mental proliferations beset a man, if nothing is found there to delight in, welcome and hold to, this is the end of underlying tendency for lust, ... This is the end of resorting to rods and weapons, etc., etc. Here these evil unwholesome states cease without remainder. I understand the detailed meaning of it to be as follows.
Okay. Well, I'll do one paragraph, then you do a paragraph, and then Marion can do it, and then we'll do that paragraph by paragraph, 3 translations.
Okay.
Visual consciousness, your reverences, arises because of I and material shape. The meeting of the three, that is the I, the material shape, and the mind that knows, is sensory impingement. Feelings are because of sensory impingement. What one feels, one perceives. What one perceives, one reasons about. What one reasons about obsesses one. What obsesses one is the origin of the number of perceptions and obsession which assail a person in regard to material shapes cognizable by the eye, past, future, and present. Okay, over to you, Pasana.
Dependent on the I and form, I consciousness arises. The meeting of the three is contact. With contact as condition, there is feeling. What one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one thinks about. What one thinks about, that one mentally proliferates. With what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions, born of mental proliferation, beset a man with respect to past and future and present forms cognizable through the eye.
Okay, Marion.
Dependent on I and forms, I consciousness arises. The meeting of the three is contact. With contact as a requisite condition, there is feeling. What one feels, one perceives, in brackets, labels in the mind, end bracket. What one perceives, one thinks about. What one thinks about, one objectifies. Based on what a person objectifies, the perceptions and categories of
Objectification?
assail him or her with regard to the past, present, and future forms cognizable via the eye.
So,
I think that's really clear.
yeah.
That one's really
So when
clear.
you see stuff,
So the next few paragraphs just go through that same sequence with each of the six sense bases: the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. So each time we basically they're going through the process of what happens from the very base up through the layers, if you like. So
The process.
the process of the mental process that happens in our own mind. So there's an eye, and it has to be a working eye. A blind eye doesn't count. Only eyes that actually operate and are sensitive organs of sight. Yeah. So you have an organ of sight. You have a visible object. That means there's light striking that object, and the visual consciousness. Now, one of the things Ajahn Brahm said on the retreat, which I thought was really good, was that eye consciousness is a completely different thing to ear consciousness, right? So there are consciousnesses.
Not just one.
An eye consciousness has things like colour, form, depth, shape, whereas ear direction. Ear consciousness doesn't have colour, form, depth, shape. Ear consciousness has a much different kind of direction. So each consciousness,
volume,
pitch, volume,
Tone.
Directions in there, though?
directions, but it's different to eye conscious direction.
Jeez.
So each type of consciousness depends on the particular sensory organ. Okay, so when you have a sensory organ and the kind of external object that sensory organ is sensitive to, so an eye and forms, an ear and sound, a tongue and tastes, a body and touches, a mind and mental objects. When the three come together, the sense, the object and the consciousness, that is contact, or sensory impingement, contact. At the moment of contact, Vedana arises, or feelings. Now, feelings is a fairly terrible translation of Vedana. The Pali word is Vedana, but it's the only English word we've got. And the trouble with the English word feelings is that in English, feeling also includes emotions. But the Pali word Vedana does not include emotions. Pali word Vedana just means the perhaps feeling tone of pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. All right?
Like perception of sensation, kind of. Is that what we were saying?
No,
last week?
what we were talking about
the
last
liking
week.
or not liking. Like if someone smacks you in the nose with a big fist, you don't have to think about the fact you don't like that. That is not a mental process, right? Straight away, when that pain blossoms from your nose, not liking is immediately arising. Immediately. And that not liking, being punched into the nose, is Vedana.
But like that is your perception of the sensation, bad sensation.
Yeah,
Don't
but
mind.
it's
Yeah, but it's bad
no,
sensation.
it's below. It's not.
Yeah.
Perception comes later.
Yeah.
In the instant of that unpleasant contact, you straight away don't
It's
like
reaction
it.
then.
Yeah. No. It's co-arises with it. There's no gap. That's not a reaction. It instantly arises.
You
At
go,
the
that was a
moment.
punch and that was unpleasant.
And later on you can have some other response to that, like anger might arise, or fear.
Mental things like, why did they do that?
Yeah.
But that happens later.
But that happens later. The not liking, the unpleasantness of that experience is immediate. It's immediately unpleasant before anything else happens. If you're hungry and you put your favourite food on your tongue, the liking of it is immediate. You don't have to think about it. It's not a mental process in terms of blah, 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 thinking about it. However, if you've just, for example, a new thing that you never had before and you're not sure, that's the mental tone of neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So sometimes it's still a Vedana, but you don't know yet. Or when you're actually having equanimity and you're okay with it, it's fine. You neither hate it nor dislike it. There's still a Vedana there, but it's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. It's most obvious in the really strongly unpleasant and the strongly pleasant. They're the places where it's easiest to find straight up. But later on you can start seeing it in the more subtle places.
We talked about Vedana.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was just trying to think of a word that wasn't feelings, so I was like throwing it out there, because we did talk about this last week.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, we could call it this. But you said mental tone, I suppose that.
Feeling tone.
Feeling tone, yeah.
And many translators have been trying to find better words for it's a whole project. And English just lacks the words.
Yeah.
We just don't have a better word.
Yeah, I was just looking for another word, but I shouldn't have. No,
it's alright.
Yeah.
You're allowed to. And you
generally
then
have to
realise.
ask us, Vedana.
Good luck.
I'm not a scholar, I'm not.
No, it's okay. But when you go searching for a better word,
you understand
you
what
then see what the problem
Yeah.
is. So it's actually a really
But
good
through
process to
the
go.
explanation of not those words not being appropriate, then I suppose we got to refine it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
We did spend a whole almost 2 hours on it last week, which I feel really lucky for.
Yeah. And the process of search illustrates the problem for you. If you didn't search yourself looking for a better word, then you wouldn't yourself directly have the experience of direct knowing that actually there isn't a better word.
We didn't use anything other than Vedana last week.
No.
So I was just stabbing the dark. Oh, maybe
Patrick, I've got the same book from Retreat here. Vedana he translates as sensation.
Sensation, okay. Yeah, I can sensation. I can dig that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's
But
pleasant.
it's still not the right word.
Yeah.
And instead of contact,
I
I've
think
got
it's
in my notes.
it doesn't have that.
Impingement.
You've
Yeah,
got
contact. Instead of
feeling
contact, in my
is-
notes from
has-
Ajahn Brahm, he says it's switched on. So it's like a switch, because the word is paso, which means switched on apparently in Pali.
Yeah.
And so the eye is switched on.
That makes sense.
The eye is switched on.
Yes,
Yeah.
or the ear is switched on, or the whatever
I've
that
also
symbol
seen
is.
paso translated as touch, you know.
Yeah.
At that point the eye is touched.
Yeah.
But that also has the problem, because usually we associate touch with the body.
Paso, he's got turning on or switching on.
Yeah.
Is how he explained it in my notes.
Why the hell is it called the Discourse of the Honeyball? Because
Because
you find
everything's
this out at the end.
Isn't it because everything's contained in this one honey ball?
Yes, exactly.
That's what I was thinking what was going on. I was like, oh, it's all in this ball.
Yeah,
He goes,
that's what
sweet
Ananda
ball.
says at the end.
I
It's
thought he
like-
goes, this is as sweet as a ball of honey, this sutta.
Yeah, I just feel like he's wrapped everything up in a little honey ball.
And a
Here it is,
ball
Royal.
of sweetness,
Yeah.
a sweet ball of Dharma.
Yeah.
Sweet ball of Dhamma.
The sweet ball of Dharma, all compacted in, all that goodness, compacted in there.
It's giving me really human non-Buddhist cravings for honeydew melon. In a nice little ball.
Okay.
So we've got as far as, and this is why a lot of the time we start just falling back into the Pali. Like, okay, here it says feelings, but it means Vedana, you know, the underlying word. So we've got visual consciousness, eye, material shape, eyes switched on, or contact or whatever, and then those feelings or what is it, sensations arise, then one has a sensation about one perceives. Now at the point of perception, sometimes it's translated as recognition.
Mm-hmm.
What is the Pali word?
Sanya.
Sanya, thank you. The Pali word here is sanya. Often translated perception, sometimes translated as recognition.
So sanya is the same root as sign, I believe.
Yeah. So I see a coloured shape, and I first of all recognise yellow, and then I go flower or daffodil. Alright, so the moment of recognition of flower, colour, daffodil, this is perception coming in. So I haven't quite run off yet, we've just recognised what this object is that we've perceived.
And this happens at the point of contact.
And here it has labels it in the mind.
Labels it, yeah, labels is good. So actually perception or labelling or recognition happens just after contact. So Vedana arises at the point of contact, whereas perception lags just a split fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second afterwards. So then we have perceives, and then now we're going to lagging further after the point of contact. We've had Vedana arising at contact, then we have recognition or perception, and then when we perceive what it is, then we start thinking about it, and the story begins.
Ruminate.
Ruminates.
Blah, 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 blah.
And then when what thinks about, one obsesses. Blah de blah de blah 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 blah. I really like daffodils. They're really my favourite flower.
In cancer council, oh, my uncle died of cancer, and then it all goes downhill from there.
And it's amazing how you can go from one thing, like I saw a splotch of yellow and it ends up in remembering my uncle dying of cancer. How did that happen, you know? And then, why didn't my uncle buy me that bicycle he promised me he was going to buy me, and he died before he ever bought me that bicycle, and off around the world in 80 seconds we've gone all the way around the world, you know. And the trouble is this obsession is that second dart, and because also the obsession itself, if we go down a little further,
You know the second dart?
remember the second dart?
Yeah,
Dart.
the arrow that hits you again. This is the name of the Sutta that we studied last week.
Yeah, I spoke about this on Saturday a little bit too. Yeah.
So the first dart, say, is the punch in the nose.
And then your perception of the punch in the nose is
And
you're hating
the first
it, or-
dart, no, the first dart is the actual punch in the nose, the unpleasant Vedana that arises from the punch in the nose.
And I was punched in the nose.
And then one perceives it, one thinks about it, one obsesses about it. How dare they punch me in the nose? I'm going to get that guy. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and blah, 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 and off you go. Now that blah, blah, blah is the second dart. Now that blah, blah, blah is a mental object. And therefore, if we look here, mental consciousness arises because of the mind existing and the mental objects existing. When the mind, the mental object, and mental consciousness come together, Vedanas arise. And so you've got contact arising again because of the obsessions. So on top of the punch in the nose, then you get a whole extra layer of, it's the same thing, it's still Vedana, but these Vedanas are coming up as a result of the mental obsession. And the story about what happened. And the story about what happened lasts a lot longer than the actual punch in the nose. The story about the punch in the nose can go on for years and decades. And you can be telling yourself that story about that punch in the nose 25 years later. And every time you told yourself the story about that punch in the nose, unpleasant Vedana arise. And that is the second dart. And so you're shooting yourself with that second dart over and over and over again. Every time you obsess about the punch in the nose, you are going to shoot yourself in the head with the second dart. You're having a whole bunch more of unpleasant Vedanas arising. It's really unpleasant when you obsess about a bad thing that happened to you. And it's optional. You didn't have to keep shooting yourself in the head with that second bunch of Vedanas. You know, that second bunch of arrows. It's actually optional. Now, the original punch in the nose may have been optional if you'd been a bit more skillful, but perhaps not.
Maybe someone was just spoiling for a fight.
On the other hand, you might have just been in the wrong place at the wrong time and bang, you know. You just don't know. However, whether or not the first dart's optional, the second dart is definitely optional. You do not have to keep obsessing about it. And that takes me back a couple of paragraphs up, where he's saying these obsessions which assault you, if you don't catch onto them, if you don't attach to these obsessions, then you are not constantly harming yourself with them. Yeah? And then you are freed from the view. Now, I don't know about you guys, but we've all met people who have the view that I am the one that this terrible thing happened to.
What wonderful thing happened?
I am the one this wonderful thing happened to. This is who I am. This is my identity. And this is the propensity to views, the propensity to identity, the attachment to becoming. So you become the person I was the person who was punched in the nose. That is me.
That was the 1988 beauty queen. Whatever it was, you know.
I'm a survivor of ...
Yeah. I am the survivor. This is the attachment to becoming. I am the one who was top of the class in my year of my SACE year in 1977. Right? That's me. Me. I'm the one who was top of the class in 1977. That's me. That's you. You weren't top of the class in 1970. Well, you might have been. You were in a different class.
Wasn't me.
But you can see then how they're really showing how these things become part of who we are. And in order to be liberated from that, we take it right down to the beginning and we look at the two darts. We look at what's happening in the very first thing, this contact with the world, the perceptions, and then this mental proliferation, this narrative that informs us of who we are. Because we tell ourselves the story of who we are every day. Right? I am the one who's going to school. I am the one who's wearing the robes. You are not the ones who are wearing the robes. I am the one who's wearing the robes. And I tell myself that story. If I tell myself that story often enough, it becomes my truth, yeah? And then I become attached to that truth. I am the one who's wearing the robes. I get to eat first. And then when I go to Patrick's retreat, and the lay people aren't into reverence to ones who wear robes, and they go up to the table and eat first, I think, if I was attached to being the one wearing the robes, I would be thinking, hey, hang on a minute! What's going on? You guys are eating before the holy nun! But of course, I don't really. I go, oh, well, that takes me down a peg or two. What a relief. I don't have to even chant for my meal today. It's quite a relief actually going on retreat with Patrick, because nobody takes any notice of whether you're in robes or not. It's great actually. I don't know whether I should say that on YouTube.
It's just a different experience. And I think that was a really good way to show that you're not attached to...
I'm hoping not to be anyway.
Yeah.
We've kind of lost our spot in the Sutta, but you know.
That's just good. Vibe obsession, did you? You had objectification. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, how does objectification work, do you think?
Attaching meaning to an object. Objectification. You are this.
Yeah, so
You
I am a smart person is objectifying myself.
Yeah.
I am the person who was top of my class in 77, which can't be possible because I wasn't alive in 77. But anyway.
I am the survivor of this terrible event, so then I become an object, and that object is unchanging.
Yeah.
I can never be anything else but a survivor of that terrible event.
And an object is something that things are done to. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if
So I am a
that
victim or I am a
Yeah.
hero.
So if you
Or
like
I am
objectify
male, I
a
am
woman,
female,
yeah.
I am, I am, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
It
am
is
fat,
the
I
same
am
thing.
thin, I am.
Yeah.
I am.
And an object also has the illusion of being unchanging and permanent, which of course we know. We all know that unchanging and permanent objects do not exist, but we like to have we love the illusion. It's so comforting to think, yes, I will always be young and beautiful.
That's not comforting.
No, that I will live. I will not die.
Oh God, who wants that?
Well, I had to speak with someone about this week, just for me bringing it up. How dare I do that, and how insensitive. Well, mortality is 100% for us humans. Deny that. I'm sorry for raising it with you.
But you know, your body's going to get so old and decrepit, you wouldn't want to keep living anyway. So.
Yeah, what would this body look like if you were 572?
Oh, that is so gross.
I want a new one. And like 572 is still not even immortality. Like you know, you're 56,329,478 gazillion years old, and you're still not immortal because time's longer than that.
It is kind of mouldy.
Even the molds died. You know?
Oh, maybe sludge.
Yeah, no. So, how long is immortality anyway? It's just.
So this is this tendency for desire for being, which was in the shopping list.
That's part of the shopping list. So what is our shopping list? That we rejoice, welcome, and catch hold of anything we like. And actually, it's strange, you know. We often rejoice and catch hold of things we don't like as part of our becoming. Objectification.
Is that because of human nature, liking to attach to more negativity?
No, it's just the nature of the mind. So what this is describing here is just the process of how this happens. There's nothing personal about it. It's just a process that happens, and it's an impersonal process that all minds do. I don't think there's any existing mind that, except for the arahants, the fully awakened ones, who, and this is I think what the Buddha's saying, that if you have, you're aware of what comes up and what arises and what passes away, but you don't rejoice in it, you don't welcome it, you don't catch hold of it, you don't
let it go.
You let it go, and you don't make it who you are.
And then you won't have the second dart.
Yeah, and you won't have the second dart. Which, when I've been looking at the two darts as they occur in my experience, the second dart can be 10, 20, 100, 1,000 times bigger than the first dart.
It's like a bazooka.
The
Because-
first dart is when something happens.
A dart is in pain because
Or an
arrow.
is English your second language? Yeah. Another word for dart.
You know, when you throw a dart.
Ah.
Or an arrow or
Yeah.
a bullet.
Yeah. So the first thing that happens is it hits you. That's the first dart.
Pierces your skin.
And then the second dart is when you go, oh my God, why did they do that? That hurts so much. What am I going to do about that? Blah, 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 blah.
I'm going to poke it a lot.
When you start thinking about it.
So there's not actually, no one shoots you a second time. The second time is when you start thinking about when you've been shot or been punched.
Like I always get shot. Always. And it's
So
just
I
my
got
story. So you feel
myself
sorry
shot
about it.
for the first time, and then I cut myself second time.
Yeah.
Is that
Because replaying the first
Because you're thinking
thing
about it.
over and
It's
over
not
again.
like physical cut. You let's say, you cut yourself.
And then you go,
Accidentally,
I'm so
and then-
stupid,
yeah.
I cut myself. And that's that second time. Because you're thinking about it then.
So you hurt yourself with the thoughts.
Again. And that can never end because 10 years later you can still think of, how stupid I was.
I can look at the scar on my finger where I almost
Yeah.
sliced through my finger cutting open an avocado and go, I'm so stupid.
Did you ever have an argument with someone?
Yeah.
Right, and then you're walking down the road the next day replaying the argument in your head? Did you ever do that?
No, not really.
Oh wow.
That's very good.
I just go sleep. And if this is a really hard, serious one that I think about it, I forget. But sometimes it just remind me. But if I
Yeah,
don't
so
remember.
in that reminding you,
Mm.
you know, sometimes when you think of that argument again,
Mm.
and it's unpleasant again, isn't it? When you think
Unpleasant. Yeah.
Yeah.
you don't like it, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So the argument was yesterday,
Mm.
and today you think about it again, and it's unpleasant again,
Yes. That's
right?
That's the,
So
that's the second
that's the
dart.
second dart.
Oh.
That's the second time that argument hurts you.
Oh.
Or the
I
third
got
time.
it. It's
or
just
the-
like it's like haunting you. For
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first time it hurt you was when you had the argument, and then the second time is when you remember it.
Mm. Okay.
And how many times can you remember it?
It really depends how serious it is.
Exactly.
How
Now, if it's
attached.
a very serious argument, you could, and that was your personality type.
Mm.
Some people will remember an argument again and again and again and again and again and again. And
Yeah.
every time they remember it, it hurts again.
Sometimes it hurts worse and worse and worse.
And you get more and more and more upset, and people get really worked up about it.
How do I get revenge? And
And have you ever spoken to someone who remembers those arguments and they go like, remember 4 years ago when you said blah 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 to me?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like, oh my
yeah.
god, you remember that word for word. Like I don't even remember that conversation. Like
Yeah, I
imagine
think-
being that upset all the time.
It's just like, okay, you think it's not serious, but
Yeah.
the person who got it feels serious. That is how I said it's about
Yeah.
how much
Yeah.
serious it is. It will affect you or the
Yeah.
person is.
Yeah.
Or how much they want to hang on to it.
Yeah.
Everything might be serious to them.
Because that's what they're delighting in.
Yeah.
Delighting in being that person who had that argument 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and some people take offence a lot more easily than other people. And if you take offence easily, then you're going to remember things
Mm.
that to somebody else is nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's correct.
Now, if you go, oh, well, you have this opinion and I have that opinion, that's okay, we can have a different opinion, and you drop it and you forget about it,
Mm.
then it doesn't hurt you, right? But if you think, oh, how dare they have a different opinion to me, and I'm right and they're wrong, and blah, 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 blah.
And we will never stop talking about it.
And then they tell all their friends. And I remember one time I went to, way back when I was not that long ago, but actually this was a long time ago, and I was a lay person. I was at a party and they said, oh, do you know such and such a person? I said, oh yeah. And they said, oh, your other sister must be really horrible. And I'm like, no, that'd probably be me. And they went, but you're really nice. And I've heard this and this and this and this about you. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not my other sister. That's me. Because they got so upset and told somebody and told somebody and told somebody, and come all the way back to me about what a horrible person I was. But they couldn't quite believe that this horrible story they'd heard was the person in front of them. So if somebody's very much more upset about it than I was, I let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are the, and you also see it with people who are injured or really unwell, and they're then very upset. So for example, oh no, I'm so unwell, I can't go to work. Who's going to pay the bills? How am I going to put food on the table if I can't go to work? And then getting upset and worrying about that is also an additional suffering on top of the suffering of being ill. And it's harder to see how being attached to a pleasant thing can also cause us problems. But it does. Being attached to being top of the class back in 1977. I don't know that I really was, but it's a good enough example. But, you know, or being, what is it, a beauty queen in 1985, which I definitely wasn't.
I wasn't really because I was 4.
Or whatever it is,
Yeah.
you know, these also can have effects on your life as you identify with that, and then it reduces the possibilities of what you can be now by being attached to something
Oh,
that
it's
happened
really
to you.
destabilising as you age and your mind doesn't work as fast or your body doesn't look like it did in 1998.
Yeah. No, my body definitely doesn't look like it did in 1998. I don't think any of us do, really. You know?
Yeah.
And those
When our mind starts to get slower, our boobs start to sag or whatever it is. Yeah.
Someone told me a really funny story playing volleyball. This is a true story. Happened about 3 weeks ago. They play volley, two male teams. They play volleyball, and one of the guys went up to the net to do a thing, and he felt this slap in his face, and he was like looking like, did you slap me? Did you slap me? And then he kind of went like this and realised there was blood on his face, and he was like, did you slap me? Who slapped me? But there was no one around him. And then he looked down at his feet, and there was a fish. A fish had fallen from the sky.
When he was playing volleyball.
It was this mullet. But what he didn't see was this other guy on his team was on the other side. Because they were all going, oh my God, his fish has fallen from the sky. And then one of the guys who was out, you know how they take teams, he'd seen the seagull. Dropped. So while all the, because all the other blokes were, oh no, I didn't hear you, look, it's the fish. It was kind of this moment that the guy who was sitting out was the one who saw the fish in the seagull's mouth. But it was just very, very funnily told, and it came on the back of someone I know had written a play about the fish that had fallen from the sky, and these people had known about that incident in this piece of theatre.
I've seen that play.
And it was just very funny, but different layers of perception.
Yes.
All these vagueness.
Yeah.
Did you hit me? Did you hit me? Oh God, there's blood. You hit me. Because he kind of felt this.
Hands shaking.
He felt the fish.
He felt the slap.
He felt a slap.
He saw the blood with his eyes, and there was eye
But it was
contact.
those moments, was that what you were talking about? That you fit, the first one is the hit, like, who hit me? Who hit me?
That was unpleasant, and I didn't like it.
But he said it helped them win. Because it was like crucial match.
It was a slap in the face to wake him up.
It was a slap in the face, but also destabilised the other team. Oh my God, a fish has fallen from the sky and hit him in the face. And he said he used it to make sure that anyway, it was just a very funny story.
Yeah, totally.
If it was there, we laugh out loud.
Yeah.
My dad always used to say, well, would you like a slap in the face with a wet fish?
Family Your family said that too. I wonder where that came from.
I've no idea, but perhaps
No,
the
my
fish fell
family-
out the sky.
My family said it's like a slap in the face with a wet fish.
Yeah. My dad used to say, like, if something bad happened, you know, like you kicked your toe, he'd say, well, it's better than a slap in the face with a wet fish.
Apparently not.
That's great. I hope someone was YouTubing it.
Yeah. This could be a.
Yeah, it could have gone viral. Yeah.
Oh dear. What great Sutta discussions we have. They go anywhere, really. Thus is the nature of mental proliferation.
Yeah.
There we go. We started with the Honeyball and we ended with a slap in the face with a fish. Well, it's now 9:27, so it's usually about this time that we wind up. And I don't think we can top that.
No, that was a good end.
Right.
Love the bracket.
Okay. So we'll Arahan to finish.
Right.
I'll try and put this over here without my.
Is this yours, Marion?
Yes.
Thank you. I've powered it off. Thanks for lending it.
Oops. Thanks, Who's standing in front of the camera? Okay. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sangham Namami